Welcome back to a brand new season of Skypothesis Vanilla Skyrim character builds. It's been a long break and we've been working very hard to produce this next season of builds for you all to enjoy. We take inspiration from all corners of fantasy to create characters that are unique and push the role-playing boundaries of Skyrim to their limits. This week we're proud to showcase the Desert Magician. Hailing from the sandy shores of Hammerfell, this trickster loves creating mayhem and confusion wherever he goes. He finds great joy in causing trouble, sowing chaos, and manipulating the minds of his opponents. His power is that of the shadows, and his quest is to unravel the secrets of the mind. Hammerfell is home to the vibrant and colorful city of Sentinel. Located conveniently along the coast, it is a major hub of trade and culture from all across Tamriel. Its position makes it an important stop for journeys to Daggerfall, Stros Mackay, and cities farther up the Iliac Bay. The wealthiest of Breton society use it as an exotic vacation spot where they can indulge in pleasures that would otherwise get them in social trouble. With such wealthy clientele, it's no wonder the streets are lined with various brothels, exotic merchants, and sideshow performers to dazzle eager audiences. One such performer called himself the Desert Magician. He would tell stories accompanied by illusions of light, shadow, and smoke. He created illusions with both magic and practical effects, and the audience could never tell which was which. That was his trademark. He would bring volunteers on stage and create dangerous scenes that they would only narrowly avoid. Sometimes it was the bolt of a crossbow or the fall of a guillotine. It all looked so real, and sometimes it was. The audience would cover their eyes in fear, gasp in shock, and collectively sigh in relief when inevitably the volunteer was revealed to be unharmed. He was always in control. After all, he'd been doing this since he was a child. He lived off the streets in his youth and practiced sleight of hand on the crowds of tourists. He knew what he was doing and reveled in the fear of his audience. He could draw a crowd like no other performer, and on the surface, he appeared to be just that, a performer. However, as his ambitions grew, so too did his mind begin to unravel. He enjoyed manipulating the fear of his audience a little too much, and it was never enough. He was an addict and fed off these emotions. His skill with illusion allowed him to get into the mind of his volunteer, explore their emotions, and manipulate them under the guise of showmanship. Also, as the stakes of his shows were raised, so too was the suspicion of the town guard. They had to deal with more and more tourists who would pass out from shock, and enough was enough. They were looking for any excuse to get rid of him, but they couldn't deny the coin he would bring in. One day, a court wizard from High Rock happened to catch the show. He spotted the illusions and volunteered to be the show's subject so he could get a closer look. The Desert Magician attempted to enter the mind of his guest but was denied access. The court mage was just too strong. Frustrated, he kept trying, but the mage just smiled. "You think yourself clever with your spells and illusions, do you? You have not even begun to scratch the surface." Frustrated and blinded by rage, the Desert Magician cut the guillotine's rope and attempted to actually sever the head of this infuriating mage. However, he was outwitted, for the mage had prepared a flesh spell, stopping the blade in its tracks. The audience cheered, assuming it was all part of the act. The Desert Magician decided that this was to be his final show. He could no longer be satisfied. He set his sights on the world to unravel the mysteries of the mind and learn all there possibly was to know about the School of Illusion. Fate, it seemed, confirmed his decision to leave, as this new thorn in his side had reported his failed murder to the guards. The Desert Magician avoided arrest and fled the country. The word magician paints a different picture than that of wizard or mage. We wanted this character to have his own unique feel, and we didn't want to create just another Nightblade build. His origin is that of showmanship, and that perspective seeps into his gameplay. Considering the Desert Magician's backstory, rule number 1 when roleplaying is to never rush headfirst into a fight. Instead, approach carefully from the shadows and manipulate the battlefield in your favor using various tricks and illusions. Whether you're pitting foes against each other, throwing your voice across the room to cause a wild goose chase, or pickpocketing the weapons and armor off of a hapless victim, with this trickster, combat will never be boring. Of course, he always has his trusty scimitar to fall back on when needed. One key focus of the Desert Magician's roleplay is that of pickpocket. The misdirection and perfect touch perks, while hilarious, are a little bit far-fetched. We can't imagine a situation where someone would seriously not notice their armor being removed from off their back. Because of this, we roleplay these perks to be magical spells, allowing the Desert Magician to remove weapons and armor by means of his dark, trickster-like sorcery. When combined with Fury spells, you can get some hilarious results. In no time at all, the Desert Magician will have naked bandits fistfight each other to the death while he watches on from the shadows, amused. Speaking of dark, trickster-like sorcery, the School of Illusion is interesting to think about. The other schools of magic all have their own complexities to dissect, but are all more or less straightforward in how they operate mechanically. Conjuration focuses on summoning and reanimation, destruction on the raw power of the elements, alteration on physical change, and restoration on the manipulation of life forces. So, what then is illusion? Is it just that? Creating illusions to trick the senses, presenting falsehoods that fool the mind, or is it more? Do the Calm, Fury, and Fear spells actually manipulate and control the mind? We believe it can be both, depending on the spell. There's evidence for the latter approach in the game. When you finally confront Mercer Frey, he hits Brynjolf with a Fury spell, forcing him to attack Carlia. Brynjolf is aware enough to acknowledge that he can't stop the attack and can't control his own body. This suggests Fury was a mind control spell, not just a trick of the senses. The Desert Magician's quest is to dominate the mind of any who oppose him. He will seek out all the knowledge he can gain from the College of Winterhold and join the Volkihar clan to become a vampire. Playing as a vampire is 100% necessary for a character like this, as the 25% boost to illusion and stealth is just too good to pass up. Plus, it totally fits his style. He is a neutral evil character who lacks any empathy whatsoever. Also, Nightblades really struggle against dragons, and having the Vampire Lord form to fall back on really makes the difference in these tough, open combat scenarios. When that's not an option, you will have a big enough pool of magicka that you can cast destruction spells and summon Atronachs to aid when needed. Also, it's a good idea to always have several staffs on hand to fall back on. They can be a lifesaver against dragons. The Desert Magician will not be joining the Dark Brotherhood, despite being an evil Nightblade. He is fully committed to his new life in Castle Volkihar and sees the Dark Brotherhood as a threat that needs to be taken care of. He is not willing to allow rivals in the shadows. If some of the local Nords who knew started performing the Black Sacrament on members of the Volkihar clan, it could spell disaster for the clan. Despite their power and skill in battle, a silver dart through a castle window would be all it takes. Destroying the Dark Brotherhood is also the only way to obtain the Redguard hood, which is absolutely essential to the Desert Magician's aesthetic. Alright, it's time to move into weapons and armor choices. For his weapon, the Desert Magician will wield a scimitar. It matches his aesthetic so perfectly that we couldn't pass it up. You can loot a scimitar off of Kimatu or his soldiers during the quest In My Time of Need. It's not hard to roleplay siding with Sadia, as the Desert Magician has a bounty in Hammerfell and doesn't want wind of his location to make it back to Sentinel. It's also nice to do this quest early so you can wear the standard Alakir ensemble until you put together your final outfit. We were shocked to see how well the Redguard hood matches with the Telvanni robes and just had to make a character with this combo. The red hood combines perfectly with the red scarf of the Telvanni robes and creates a really cool looking head wrap. He will wear the shrouded hand wraps and shrouded shoes to provide double backstab damage, along with muffled movement respectively. The Redguard hood and Telvanni robes are a bit difficult to obtain. The only Redguard hood in the game is worn by Nazir of the Dark Brotherhood, and can only be obtained by either killing him or pickpocketing from him when the quest Destroy the Dark Brotherhood is active. If you join the Dark Brotherhood, you will be unable to obtain this armor piece, as it will label Nazir as essential. The Telvanni robes take a bit longer to obtain and require you to complete all of Master Neloth's quests. While some of these quests are a bit difficult for a low-level character, we do recommend completing them as soon as possible so you can get fully kitted out in your awesome outfit. For auxiliary gear, you will want to get your hands on the super overpowered Ring of the Erudite and an Amulet of Resist Fire. This is used just so you don't get immediately burned to a crisp anytime you're exposed to fire. Moving on to spells and shouts, the Desert Magician will take full advantage of the School of Illusion, particularly Invisibility, Harmony, Hysteria, and Mayhem. The Master of the Mind perk will allow these spells to affect undead, automatons, and Daedra, which is incredibly useful considering that basically half of the dungeons in the game contain either Draugr or Dwemer machines. He will also use basic healing spells like Fast Healing. Though an illusionist primarily, he is still a mage trained at the College of Winterhold. As such, you will have the freedom to cast whatever spell will aid in the moment. Though not his specialty, sometimes destruction spells are necessary. For shouts, he will use Whirlwind Sprint, Throw Voice, Disarm, Aura Whisper, Elemental Fury, Frost Breath, and Marked for Death. Quiet casting will allow you to use these shouts from the shadows without being detected. Throw Voice and Disarm are integral to any Trickster-style character, and Elemental Fury will give you a cutting edge in open combat if you are ever discovered. Vampire's Seduction and Embrace of Shadows can be used if you find yourself out of magicka, and Vampiric Drain can help a lot if you need to heal during a skirmish. As he is on a quest to unravel the mysteries of the mind, he will definitely pursue all the hidden knowledge he can from Apocrypha. For Black Book powers, we chose to use Dragonborn Frost, Secret of Arcana, Mora's Boon, Seeker of Sorcery, Scholar's Insight, and Black Market. Now for his stats and perk spread. We chose to put 100% into magicka. Even though we are using the Ring of the Erudite, this is still a no crafting build, so you can never have too much magicka. Casting invisibility over and over again eats up a lot of magicka, and you will still occasionally use spells in schools you have not perked. If you play carefully, you will have no need for health or stamina because you will never get hit. He will use the Atronach Stone to provide a solid boost to magicka and 50% spell absorption. The decrease in regen isn't a big deal as the Ring of the Erudite more than makes up for it. For the race, we chose to play as a Redguard, both for roleplay and aesthetics. The racial ability Adrenaline Rush makes it easier to ignore adding perks to stamina. By the time you reach level 40, you will want to have the following perks. For this build, we will be perking the entire illusion tree. Dual casting in particular will be extremely helpful when you reach higher levels. When combined with the buff from being a vampire, few enemies will be able to withstand your illusion spells. Also, the Master of the Mind perk is crucial, so we recommend grinding up this skill tree as fast as possible, even using exploits if necessary. In Pickpocket, we took all 5 perks in Light Fingers: Night Thief, Cut Purse, Misdirection, and Perfect Touch. Once again, we roleplay that Perfect Touch is unrelated to Pickpocket skill, but in fact a Trickster unique spell that the Desert Magician has mastered. In One-Handed, we have just 3 perks in Armsman at this point. He is a Trickster, not a Swordsman. Skill with the blade takes time, so you will want to prioritize the other skill trees. The extra damage is nice, but one-handed combat is definitely not the focus of this build. After reaching higher levels, you may want to return to this tree and add more perks. In Restoration, you will take the Novice and Apprentice perks along with Regeneration. This is done for the fast healing spell and occasional ward usage. In higher levels, you can return for the Necromage perk. Finally, we will be perking the entire left side of the sneak tree and just the perk Backstab on the right. When you need to slip into the shadows, you can crouch to activate Shadow Warrior and immediately follow up by casting Invisibility. This combo will help you quickly slip back into the shadows undetected. If you plan to play past level 40, you will definitely want to heavily perk the one-handed tree, along with a few perks in Alteration for flesh spells and magic resistance. Keep in mind that we chose level 40 as a checkpoint, as that is the level that most builds begin to take shape. And now for our favorite part of every build, the special moves. These move combinations form the basis of gameplay unique to your character. First off, we have Rage Untethered, which is performed by using Perfect Touch and Mayhem. First, sneak around and remove the weapons and armor off of the strongest enemies on the battlefield and cast Mayhem. Watch from the sidelines as they all pummel each other to death with their fists. Next is Unwitting Champion. After casting Mayhem, select an enemy on the battlefield and buff them with Courage. This unwitting ally, filled with sudden determination, will assist you in clearing out the battlefield, only to be rewarded with your scimitar in his chest once his allies have fallen. Next up we have Blink, which is a combination of Whirlwind Sprint and Quiet casting. This move acts as a quick, silent teleport through the shadows to reposition behind unsuspecting enemies. He learned this move while observing a certain Breton vampire knight defend Castle Volkihar from a Dawnguard raid. Finally, we have Banishment, which is the combination of Nightingale's Strife and Soul Tear. This is a wicked 1-2 punch combo that will deal 400 damage almost instantly. First, you will absorb 100 points from the enemy using Strife. Then Soul Tear will quickly deal 300 damage, Soul Trap them, and reanimate the corpse when dead. This is such a sinister spell when you think about it. You are not only absorbing their life essence, but you are banishing them to the soul cairn for eternity and using their corpse temporarily as a meat puppet. This build could create a huge list of unique spell combos using many of the game's greater powers. Let us know in the comments what your favorite move combos are. And with the special moves completed, we are ready to wrap up the Desert Magician. We've been wanting to make a Nightblade for a while, and once we discovered the armor combo, the character all fell into place. The aesthetics of this character became an instant favorite. We have a full season of our best builds coming each Friday, and we can't wait to show them all to you. If you like what we do, be sure to like and subscribe so you'll be notified when they're posted. Thank you for joining us on this journey to keep the magic of Skyrim alive, and we'll see you next week right here on Skypothesis.